welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abassi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. Welcome back. I have not been recording for several days because I've just been completely overwhelmed with the process of buying and selling our house and stuff like that, and needing to get out for showings. That's been really difficult for me. Every time we have a showing, we meaning my husband and the two dogs and I, need to pile into our vehicle and go somewhere. And you know that being in the car is very difficult for me, because I can't ride in the car with my eyes open, and riding in the car with my eyes closed causes a lot of, I don't know, it's like I can't tell where I am kind of thing, and it's bothersome no matter what. It's either visually bothersome or it's like nauseating. It's just terrible. It's terrible to be in the car. So we've been doing that for the past couple days, and I couldn't do much of anything else. Of course, the showings are spread out just enough so that I have just enough time to recover and then get back in the car. So it's been kind of tough. And yeah, so I apologize for not being here, but I really just needed to focus on my health and making sure that I don't go off the deep end as far as my symptoms go. So today, what I wanted to talk about is really the progressive nature of the disease of alcoholism, and what that was like for me. I sometimes I wonder, should I be talking more about my stroke? Should I be talking more about my vestibular disorder? Should I be talking more about alcoholism? And I always resort back to, I need to talk about what's in my heart and what's going on with me in the moment. And there are enough episodes, and hopefully the title is just enough with the description of a giveaway of what it's about, so folks can choose whether they want to listen or not. So, um, I feel like I talk a lot about alcoholism, and definitely more so than I talk about my stroke and vestibular disorder. But I truly believe that my sobriety is the foundation. My sobriety program is the foundation of my existence, of my life. And it ends up applying to everything else that I don't directly talk about. I had a psychiatrist appointment this morning virtually, and we were talking about some relationships. We were talking about family relationships. And I talked to her about how I handle different things. And I said, the only way I have these answers is through my sobriety program. I just follow what the program tells me to do and keep my side of the street clean. Reach out if I feel like I owe an amends and stuff like that. And it seems to be the best way of handling relationships that I've ever done in my life. So it works for me. And told her, that this program for living that I have acquired through AA has helped me through everything that I have faced in the past 9 years, including my stroke and my disability. So that's why I tend to talk about it so much, because I think that it's applicable across the board to whatever is going on in your life. You know how people go to like a fortune teller or like a palm reader or something like that, and the palm reader will say something like, there's somebody in your life who has brown hair, and you're like, yeah, 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 I know somebody with brown hair. It's something that can be, they say things that can be applied to just about anybody. And that's what, maybe a poor example, but it gets my point across. Like these principles of my program can be applied to anything that I encounter. So that's why I tend to talk about it a lot. I love it. That's why I tend to talk about it a lot. And it's gotten me out of a deep, deep pit of despair. I was headed towards a slow suicide if I was not redirected on this path. And I know that for sure. I mean, I'm 100% sure that if I had not switched directions, I would have died by now for sure. And so it saved my life, and I'm forever committed to it. And I'm forever going to go to meetings. Some people say to people that are like family might ask people in early sobriety, how long do you have to go to those meetings? And it's usually kind of a humorous thing to ask because for the alcoholic, because we understand as we practice the steps that this is a lifelong disease, and it's contingent. My sobriety is contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. That means I need to go to meetings every day. Me, I have to go to meetings every day. So that's what I do. Um, the beginning of my disease, I don't know when it started. All I know is every memory I have that involved alcohol, I obsessed about it. And that is from the very, very beginning. I remember my mom gave me a beer on New Year's. I was in elementary school. I might have been in middle school, but I don't think so. I think I was in elementary school. Presuming, I think that I wasn't going to drink it. But I did. I drank as much as I could because that's what happened from the very beginning. I wanted to, like, I have to drink it. I have to drink it. I have to finish it. Um, and I started to feel tired. That's the feeling that I remember happening as I drank more and more of that beer. And then fast forward to when I got to have my next beer, which was in middle school at some point. And it was always like that. Every time I had the opportunity, it was like, I have to finish this. You have to finish what you started, Rachel. Um, and I remember not particularly caring for the taste of beer, but I didn't dislike it either, if that makes sense. And over time, I started to get to feel that high that I started chasing. And then it was more of a combination of I'm not sitting here because I have to finish it. It was both. I have to finish this and I have to get as high as possible. Um, in high school, I remember stealing my mom's wine. She had like one of those big jugs of wine because it was cheaper to buy it in bulk. And so I would see after she go to bed, I would take some of it, just enough where she wouldn't be able to see how far the line went down, how much I emptied out of it. And and I did that for a long time. And I would also steal her cigarettes, one or two of them. And yeah, I mean, I was a thief, I was a liar, and I just wanted the high. I just wanted the high. That's what kept me coming back and doing that stuff. And what started out, I couldn't control it from the get-go. I felt like I had to get the wine out of my mom's jug. I had to. It doesn't make sense to somebody who's not an alcoholic to hear somebody say, well, I had to. The response back to somebody, by somebody who's not an alcoholic would be like, just don't, like, have some willpower, would you? And that's what I thought I didn't have. I thought I didn't have willpower. Um, but that's not what it was. Come to find out that I had the disease of alcoholism, and my body just wanted more and more and more and more. And my body became dependent on it. So I we talk about how alcoholism is a progressive disease. And what I thought about the other day is, isn't it true that as the disease progressed within me, my seeking of help progressed as well? So in the beginning, when I was in college, my sorority and my friends uh, tossed around the idea that I was an alcoholic. Not just me, but my friend also. I just happened to be one, and she's not. But folks were talking about that because I couldn't not drink. I drank every day in college too. And it's a wonder that I graduated. But so the discussions of my disease started with friends. And then over time, as my disease began to impact different things, whether it's school, me showing up, me making promises and breaking them, all of that stuff, then the conversation started to merge over to family. It was no longer just friends. Now my family was a little bit aware. And then the destruction continued to ripple out. And as the destruction rippled out and my life was becoming a little bit like I can't handle it. I can't handle it. I needed to go to a therapist. And I went to so many therapists. I went to so many therapists because whenever, they would help me for a while, they would give me really good advice. And then they would ask me eventually, how much do you drink? And I would answer them dishonestly. I would say, a couple. I have a couple every night or something like that. I would lie. And I think that there's a lot of people who lie. I think there are people who aren't alcoholics who lie about how much they drink because I don't know. That's just what we do. I've heard lots of people tell me that they're like, yeah, I just say that I have a couple. Well, I used to say I had a couple, but I was really finishing like a half a box of wine. And that's a lot. That's a lot more than a couple. That is my blood was pure alcohol flowing through my body every day. And and so I would stop going to the therapist, and that would mean that my life would continue to become unmanageable, become more and more unmanageable until I reached a breaking point again. And this is definitely summarizing, but eventually I walked into the rooms of AA, and I still was trying to like implement minimal change in order to fix things in my life. And that's what I was doing as I had this progression of seeking help, starting with my friends, making minimal change. Maybe I won't drink so much in front of that friend or family. Maybe I need to go out and drink in my car rather than drink at home so that people in my family, won't know. Or don't tell my therapist. So I would make these minimal changes in order to accommodate my disease and yet not impact so much my life and my relationships until the disease was so all consuming that I couldn't, no matter how much I tried to hide it, I couldn't. Um, I began to behave differently. I was not trustworthy. And even if you did not run across any of the little boxes of wine or beer bottles that I hid all around the house, you could still tell that there's something not quite right with mom. And so I finally went to AA, and I was doubtful that anybody understood how bad it was for me, that anybody understood the extreme obsession with alcohol that I had. But I went anyway, because I thought I was worse than them. I thought I was unique. That was my thing throughout my life, is thinking that I'm unique and nobody else is going to understand. So I just didn't talk about it. I kept it to myself. But as I sat in the rooms, I started to hear my people expressing the same crazy, untrustworthy behavior that I did. Talking about hiding, some people talked about hiding their alcohol in places I never would have thought of. They they talked about the best place to hide alcohol, you've heard it from me, unless you have already heard it somewhere else, is in the back of your toilet. And I thought, ugh, I never would be that bad. Yeah, I would be. I would be that bad. Um, so I started to hear these people have the same dependency as me. And eventually, I like when I first started AA, I never would have considered going to detox because I needed my disease to progress still. I needed my disease to progress, my unmanageability to progress in order for my progression of seeking help to reach the point where I thought there's nothing else but detox for me. So I finally went to detox. And for those of you who have been listening for a long time, know that that didn't work the first time. And eventually, after 8 years of drinking, I finally turned to God. And I wasn't raised in a religious household. We went to church when I was little, but it was just kind of a thing that you do on Sundays. That's what you're supposed to do on Sundays. I don't know why we went, but eventually we stopped going. But I always had this feeling like I wanted a relationship with this God that I didn't know. And so I did pray in a way. I guess I didn't know throughout my life that I was praying, but I was maintaining some sort of relationship with some sort of concept of God. And so I finally reached out to God and I said, God, please help me. In desperation, I said, God, please help me. It was like the middle of the night. It was like 2:30 in the morning. And I was just a blubbering mess. And I was probably talking to my grandparents because that's what I did when I was drunk. They passed, but I was like talking to them as if they could help me or something like that. And then finally, I just said, God, please help me because I was going to die. And I got up and I went to the bathroom and I looked at my face and I whispered, "You're already dead." because there was nothing left of me. I was just a shell. So I went back to detox again, and so that progression of seeking help got to the point where I went back to detox. I went to an addiction therapist, and at that point, there was nothing I wouldn't do to stay sober. That's where I had to reach. That deadly progression of my disease needed to reach some sort of, they call it a low, but my desperation had to peak in order to be willing to do anything. I will do anything. I just don't want to die. That's what it was. That's what it came down to for me. Um, so nothing worked up until that point. Um, I can clearly recall not surrendering until that point. I continued to try to manage my life with the same tools and the same people in it. It wasn't until I faced complete despair and complete unmanageability. There was a chaos within me that was invisible to everybody. It was, and I remember being alone in my house once. The kids were at school, and I had stopped taking my anxiety medication, and I got to the point where I spun my chair around and screamed out, "I can't take it anymore." That was the chaos in my head. Um, I was insane. That's what it felt like. I was dying a slow suicide, and I knew it, but I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't understand how what surrender really was. I didn't understand what building a relationship with a higher power really was. I couldn't understand this deeper level of living until the alcohol was taken away. And once I did that, it's like, are you all in or are you not? Because there is no in between. There was no way for me to not drink and still do just some of the program. I was not going to be able to go on like that. I heard something, I think it was yesterday. Somebody said the acronym, or what fine is the acronym for. Like, when somebody says, "How are you doing?" and you say, "I'm fine," and you're not. Um, so this person said that FINE stands for effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. And that is what it is, right? That is when I say I'm fine and I'm really not, I'm effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. That's exactly what's happening. So I don't get credit for that acronym, but it's absolutely why I hate the word fine, because I don't think that it expresses anything. You might as well not say anything at all. Um, I I was constantly doing the next wrong thing. I knew it was wrong, but I did it anyway. I didn't know how to behave differently. I was reactionary. I was driven by immediate gratification, and it always ended in remorse. It always ended with me waking up in the morning a trembling mess, often running to the bathroom to throw up, and not knowing, my life is falling apart. My body is slowly getting weaker and weaker. I believe, my doctor didn't say this because I don't think the doctor really understood the gravity of the situation, but I believe that I was so um, sedentary that I had atrophy in my feet. I think that because I started having this terrible thing I was dealing with my toes and my feet. And over time, as I started exercising, walking and running, that went away in my feet. So that's how bad it was for me. And I had to just completely let go of old ideas. It was not allowing myself to consider old ideas and then just have the willpower not to do them. It's not like I was sitting at home white knuckling, um, thinking about the drink and being like, no, you can't have it. You can't have it. You know, you can't have it. I'm just going to have one. No, you can't have it. I wasn't doing that. I didn't allow myself to do that because that's willpower, and willpower was not going to save me. What I had to believe, I had to 100% believe in that there was a power greater than me. And when I truly believed that, and I remember the moment that I made that decision, it saved my life. Faith saved my life. I'm sure of it. And I haven't been able to admit it or articulate it or whatever. But it was that moment that I've talked about so many times where I was in San Francisco and um, I was like, nobody would know. Nobody would know. And I recognized that, but somebody would know, and that somebody is me, number one, and number two, and not necessarily in that order, is the God of my understanding. If I'm really gonna be all in on this faith, then the God of my understanding is right here with me and knows that I'm drinking. And, if I'm gonna pick up a drink. And that's when I decided I wasn't gonna do it. Because would I pull up a chair and sit across from God and drink a glass of wine? No. And so I wasn't willing to do that. And it was that moment, that realization that saved me that day from drinking. And quite honestly, I think it has saved me ever since then. Is understanding that I wasn't alone anymore, accepting that I truly wasn't alone, and that the God of my understanding has been with me all along and has been trying to pull me in the direction of recovery. And I finally got to the point where the next thing I was about to lose was more important than the booze. And I was finally willing to do anything and everything it took to recover. Um, I realized that I was going to die if I didn't change. And so that progressive acceptance, I wouldn't call it necessarily a burning bush moment because it required a major year-long, several year-long build-up to get to that final point. But I had like a progressive acceptance that ended in willingness. It ended in willingness. And there's not a period at the end of that. It's something that I have to do every day. And that's why, again, I talk about it all the time. I drank because I wanted the high. Um, that's all I wanted. I wanted to feel good. I wanted that immediate gratification. And what I got finally from walking away from that and leaning into this faith business is it's another immediate gratification of sorts. it absolutely, when I'm feeling all twisted up, if I stop and I close my eyes and I pray and or meditate, that stuff will release. That rubber band that's being twisted up inside of me will release. And I do get an immediate gratification. I know for people who are still drinking and might be listening, you would be like, yeah, but come on, it's not the same kind of gratification. No, it's not. It's better because it's something that is long term. It's something that I can feel for weeks at a time, months at a time. I can feel this positivity and delight, excitement to be alive. And I have this new layer of awareness that I never had my whole life. I mean, I remember as a little kid I had it and I have it back again. And that is proof that letting go and embracing change and leaning into my concept of God, my faith has transformed my life. It has transformed that chaos in my head to peace. And that is amazing. It is amazing that I can sit here and talk about it from the heart, and it makes me just feel so lucky that I'm one of the ones who got to survive. And I don't want to give that up. And my payment is to share my experience, strength, and hope with others so that they may know that there's a solution, that chaos inside your head is not your destiny. It's just something that you go through and you get to the other side. If you lean into God, lean into community, lean into recovery and the tools that are presented in front of you. But mainly lean into faith. That's what happened for me. So that's all I have for you today. It's nice to be back and talking again. So thanks for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.